What would you sacrifice for glory? Terlis Illyrian, the powerful queen of Gilear, nurtures a dangerous dream and will sacrifice anything to turn it into reality, even those she loves. Driven by greed and arrogance, her actions will seed the war between her two daughters, Deline and Hewin. Deline will inherit two queendoms united by a lie and divided by mistrust. To keep her crown, she will fight enemies in the battlefield, but the most treacherous are those dwelling in the shadows of her own court. Ambition, madness, and greed, grief, and love will give birth to an unfathomable darkness. It is a dangerous thing to meddle with fate. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. For this week's video, I decided I would start my dive into the Illyrian saga, written by Bella Dunn, with a look at the first book within this very fancifully named series. And I'm going to pick you up to show it to you. The Sorrow of the Wise Man. That is a very busy cover, I have to say. Or rather, it kind of strikes an odd balance between being busy and being clean. Because the framing of it is, for the most part, quite clean. However, the central element within it is actually filled with a lot of, images, a lot of symbols. And after you're done going through the book, you realize that all of these symbols do actually have an important meaning, when it comes to the book itself, and to its various to the symbolism it uses, and to its various plot beats. So in that sense, this book's cover sacrifices some of its appeal for meaningful imagery. And that is a trend that is also found within the book itself, but I'm getting ahead of myself. As for the author, she is a scientist by day, and has had her creative passion ignited within childhood. Occasionally, she still indulges within that thrill, within her creative initiatives. With this particular initiative, the Illyrian saga, being her most ambitious so far. What does that say about its quality, however? Well, I can't speak for the saga as a whole. First of all, because it's incomplete. Second of all, because I've only read the first book. But I can specify about this book what my impressions are. And my impressions of The Sorrow of the Wise Man are... This is another book where I think it's safe to say that an author's ambition pretty much overtakes that said author's abilities. Maybe even surpasses their vision, so to speak. The world that the book presents is broad and expansive, but ultimately comes across as hollow, a little bit too neat and too tidy to fully be immersive. Still, I will say it has a pretty solid narrative through line, so if you find the book blurb that I started this video reading out for you, then I think it is fair to say that you will get what you are expecting. Be mindful of the content warnings, though. They are there for a good reason. And now that I've covered some of the, my broad impressions, it's time I delved into some specifics. The plot of this book follows the reigns of two successive queens within the Illyrian dynasty. Those being Terlis and her oldest daughter, Deline. Terlis believes in a specific prophecy and wants to do everything she can to ensure that it is her immediate successors who end up fulfilling said prophecy. Daleen, her inheritor, by contrast, finds herself to be less than impressed either by the prophecy nor in nor in her mother's attempts to fulfill it. But Daleen's younger sister, Hayween, uh, very much finds herself intrigued by the power that that is connected with the fulfillment of said prophecy, and would very much like to acquire that power herself. However, her mother's ambitions or her plans towards Hayween unfortunately require that the younger sister play second fiddle, and it is this freeway conflict between these women that ends up fueling the that ends up fueling the broader conflict of the book as a whole. Unfortunately, it has to be said that it is not really compelling enough to really to really fill the the entire length of this book. You really could cut it. You really could cut this book by anywhere between 30 to 60% even, and you could still tell the same basic story about a feud within the royal family, while only introducing any secondary characters in a similar utilitarian fashion as this book. And that would also allow the book to be to focus a little bit more on the stakes of the story, present them in a more in a manner that is not necessarily flashy but more impactful, rather than the current more melodramatic presentation. The books afterward mentions that the plotting for the Illyrian saga occurred more or less in reverse, with the with this first book, with its details of the first book coming into slotting into place a little bit after the after the details of the other books, which means that this book, more than probably more than most other first books in the series, is basically an expanded prologue, with a lot of the issues that that these expanded prologues face. The primary one being that it doesn't really have enough world building or story hooks to really allow the readers to fully immerse themselves within the resulting story. And given I already mentioned the world building, I'm going to continue talking about that. And I have to say, the story takes place the story of this book takes place on a specific continent, and Lair being the one continent being divided between several monarchies. Lair being the one where both Terlis and Daleen reign, is given more definition within the book than the than the rest of the continent combined. And I have to say that definition does actually work out quite well, with a lot of the places of this monarchy, as well as the interactions between them, coming to life in a very smooth, very exciting manner. Unfortunately, that smoothness doesn't really give it the level of depth that it could have, because this book is built upon a very specific socio-religious paradigm, and unfortunately, I don't really find it to fully explore the the consequences or implications of that socio-religious paradigm, leaving it in the realm where it is basically conforming to the ideal, unless the plot requires otherwise. So yeah, this is basically what I said about the book not really having enough hooks, with most of the details being given about the world being more or less aesthetic. So it's really world building for imagery rather than for imagery and for immersion through aesthetics, rather than for concepts and immersion through philosophical exploration. Which I have to say, it's an approach, and it's one that I personally don't necessarily resonate with, because I find it leaves a lot of open doors. When it comes to characterization, the book is somewhat interesting, even if perhaps similarly superficial, if I may say so myself. While the conflict between the leads doesn't really have the same punch that it could have, I nevertheless do still find Terlis, Delene, and Hewin to be fully fledged and very compelling figures in their own right, and I do find that their definition and development to be very effective and very interesting to follow, as well as how it ties into the stakes that the book is trying to establish. Other characters within the story are presented in a more utilitarian fashion, so to speak, with them really being there to fulfill a role, but don't really have much about them beyond what it is that they bring to that role. They are not without charisma, but they are, but they don't really have the depth that they could have given the page count of this book. This is the point where they really could, where the story could have given them, their own hooks, their own storylines, something that would allow them to, showcase their struggles and therefore become a bridge to the audience and connect more with the readership. But me saying that is basically, is almost going into rewriting this book, and I really don't intend to do that, not yet at least. Overall, while I cannot deny the obvious passion and desire that flowed into creating this book, I ultimately find that it does not fulfill the promise of a deep, lavish intrigue that it is really attempting to set up. So my final rating for The Sorrow of the Wise Man is a 3 out of 5. And that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed it, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the book itself or to my review of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and The Path Not Taken, are available at various book retailers under their respective master links in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. And given the third book that I'm trying to get off the ground might just have some updates about it by the time this video comes out, the moment you're watching it might be as good a time as any to check out my social media in order to find out more about that third book. I also have a second channel where you can hear me talking about whatever else crosses my mind, though it'll typically still be related to narrative analyses, but of works outside the print medium. So if that sounds like it could be of interest to you, then I suggest you go ahead and check it out. If however you want to hear more about my thoughts on the print medium and selected works therein, well then I suggest you stay on this channel, where aside from an embarrassment of riches when it comes to book reviews, I also do, I also have book rewriting videos, writing advice videos, and various other writing or authorship related videos. So if that sounds like it could be up your alley, I suggest you go ahead and check them out. If it doesn't, well then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever else you want with the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was it for me. So until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been The Heir's Lair.